Watch out for the hole.
What hole?
Watch out for the portable hole. Rock out to the portable hole. Watch out for the portable hole. Rock out to the portable hole.
Welcome to the Portable Hole podcast. I'm Ryan George, and I'm here with my good friends Justin and Cynic. How you guys doing?
Pretty well.
Yeah,
Had a
so
nice
you
little
were
show.
performing somewhere. Yeah, where were you performing?
Yeah. I
today?
just performed pretty close here. At the Ventnor Cafe. It was nice. I got a nice reception. It wasn't too many people, but everyone loved it. So they wanted me to come back in and play, but I had to come here and record with you guys.
This is in AC.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of music were you playing? Was it your country stuff? Was it?
Yeah, most of my original country-ish, whatever you want to call it, Justin country.
Yeah, Cynic. Have you heard Justin's country music?
I have not.
Let's look. Just search for him on Spotify. He's got some good stuff.
Yeah, and I have
Spotify,
some more stuff coming out.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
I'm coming up with the album "Unsexy Songs by a Middle-Aged White Guy." So
Aptly named.
Actually, I had my Father Time is catching up with me moment. I started taking glucosamine, and that
Nice.
was like when I finally gave it, I was like, I have to, and I feel much better.
what does it do?
Well, so it helps with joint kind of. Well, it's supposed to help with kind of joint pain or inflammation,
Yeah.
I just have been very achy, especially after workout. So I finally I was at
We're harping back to the old Jim Witz days.
yeah right.
With this guy.
So yeah, I was just like, I need something because my body's aching all the time, like especially
Yeah.
after workout. So
Yeah, that's what happens.
The
Yeah.
not so
Ugh,
portable middle-aged
hurts.
podcast.
Yeah, exactly. It's like just the train that is constantly moving forward, and there's not much we can do about that. So
Yeah.
except try to exercise and maybe eat healthier. But other than that, so we got a not a ton of news today because we want to kind of get through this review of the Acolyte, but a couple of interesting news stories, kind of MMA related, of course, because we've become an MMA podcast somehow. But yeah. So Cynic, what's going on with Conor McGregor? Like, I know he called out, but I wasn't following us too much the situation.
Well, I can tell you, Ryan, if I was Michael Chandler, who waited 18 months to get this money fight, I would be losing my fucking mind right now because we're literally 3 weeks away from the fight. And about 2 weeks ago, there was video of Conor partying it up in a club. And being a cynic, I was like, oof, he's not taking this seriously. And
Yeah.
he's not a 20-something-year-old John Jones who could rebound from stuff like
Yeah.
that. I've seen pictures of him just recently. He looks very unroided and very deflated and not super cut or muscular especially for 185.
Yeah.
And
So
so
he
they
doesn't
were
have his Roadhouse body.
not anymore.
Really? Wow.
That Roadhouse body definitely hit the road. So I'd say it was a couple days ago. They were supposed to do a big press conference to rally the fans in Ireland. Dana was on his way there after the fights this past weekend, and Michael Chandler was at the airport, and they were told that the press conference is off. Now, the fight isn't canceled, but the press conference is off. And then Conor proceeds to take pictures of himself at a doctor's office, all smiling and happy. So today, Dana came out with, well, as far as mental war combat, he's right up there with Ali. So you're telling me that the only way you're going to be able to get an advantage on this guy is that you pretend that the fight's over, so he breaks training camp and goes home in frustration, and then in the last minute you're going to jump back up and say, "Oh yeah, I'm ready to fight." I mean, if you need to do that to win, why are you wasting our fucking time?
Yeah.
And why are they centered a card, International Fight Week, around this particular fight, and now it may not happen. And I was hoping to see Conor, even though I think that he can't beat Michael Chandler. Conor's won one fight in the last 5 years, and that was against a very washed-up Donald Cerrone. Chandler's been active, but he took about the last year and a half off waiting for this fight.
Yeah.
So it's disappointing all around for everybody. We lose, Chandler definitely loses, and the UFC takes a bath. Meanwhile, Conor just keeps smiling because he doesn't really actually need to fight.
Yeah. So do you think that this is just like a typical marketing ploy. Let's make everyone think that I'm pulling out, that this is not going to happen. So then we can hype it up more and get more pay-per-views and more points.
What's gained out of that?
I don't think he wants to fight at the end of the day. I think that he might have went back and watched a couple Chandler fights, and Michael Chandler is a straight up savage. His catch line is, "I'll see you at the top," because he just gets in there and he bites down on his mouthpiece and swings in every single fight.
For anyone. It's never an easy fight against him.
And he can take a hit too. He's taken some of Dustin Poirier's best hits, some of Justin Gaethje's best hits, and walked right through them. And I just don't think Conor has the punching power, even at 185, to put this guy out. I think it's going to be a long night, and I think it's the same thing with what happened with Dustin. I think he ends up on the canvas. And how many more times do we rally around and pay our $80 to see Conor get knocked out?
I want to do it. Yeah. It's like now people are just tuning in to see him get knocked out. It's like
but that's kind of like what it's like the fight game has become the celebrity fight game, and in Conor's, for him, he's become like he's beyond MMA, right? He's a celebrity. He's one of the biggest figures in the sport. So I think people are going to pay to see him fight regardless. Just because he has a name, it'll take a few more really bad beatings for that to change. And I think the UFC maybe smartly is trying to milk whatever they can out of him.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think he's going to be fighting that much longer. But yeah, it's just I don't understand it. I never understand, like, especially for him. Like, we talk about like how much they need a union and how bad the terms are for most fighters. That is not the case for him. He's got a ton of money and is making a ton. And if you can't commit to media obligations, that's just insane.
Yeah.
I mean, also that's UFC's fault. Like, they're taking guys that shouldn't be fighting and throwing them.
There's a part of it that just makes me think it's Conor being Conor. Like, he is a textbook narcissist. Everything has to revolve around him. He will make decisions. He will do things just so that the spotlight is on him. Whether he doesn't view it as a negative or positive. It's just anything that's on him all the time. And I sometimes think he does it just to do it. Like, sometimes it's calculated, sometimes it's not. So who knows? He could have just been thinking, "Let me do this." Like, one day, when you're dealing with a narcissist like that, like, basically anything goes.
And we don't know the amount of drugs that may or may not be involved and everything else. So so it sucks. So now another fight related story, again, celebrity fights, is that the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight's been at least postponed.
Yeah.
Not shocked. I don't know if this fight ever
real
happens.
Shocked about that. Yeah.
You mean a 60-year-old man is having medical problems? Even if you're in superior condition like Mike Tyson, a 60-year-old guy might have an ulcer that'll flare up if you fly around or smoke too much pot.
Think that Mike Tyson would want to do this fight. Like, this is his final payday, right? He's going to make a lot of money. Like, I couldn't imagine him wanting to pull out unless he was just really physically not able to do that. And even if he did, I feel like he would do whatever he could to step in that ring and get that final payday.
But that's the thing, is Tyson doesn't need the money. He's deep in the marijuana game. He was one of the original growers out in Vegas.
It's but if you look at his net worth, it's not huge, and the marijuana game is really, really temperamental. Like, it's like rags to riches. People have lost fortunes. People have made fortunes. It's a tricky game, and I bet you he would love that security blanket right now. Like, Jake Paul doesn't. He's got. He's got this thriving, YouTube business, and his hands in all these different pots and all these businesses. Yes, Mike Tyson has a name, but you got to think at his age, he's like, look, if I could snag this payday, it'll be good for me. It'll be very good.
Gotta give it to them, the Paul brothers. Jake Paul,
absolutely.
For what it's worth, doing boxing and doing decently enough to compete, and Logan Paul's like, gonna be an all-time great pro wrestler, apparently. From what I understand.
Very smart.
He's making money hand over fist with Prime as well.
Yeah,
my problem with the Pauls are that they scam people. If you watch any of the CoffeeZilla videos, Logan Paul is way deep in the content, and I'm sure none of those people got the kind of even slightly repaid from the whole crypto zoo thing. So that's my thing, is that, like,
scammers.
It's fine that you're an entrepreneur, but don't do it at the
expense.
Everyday working man's expense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's get right to stuff that we've been watching. I actually had a few good things. One was recommended by you, Cynic. So I'll start off. Now, so Justin, did you ever have Movie Pass?
Very briefly.
Okay, so there was a documentary
Pre-COVID.
on HBO. Well, it kind of crashed pre-COVID.
They crashed
But,
after that. Yeah. Everyone was doing it. Like
the documentary is Movie Pass, Movie Crash, and Cynic, you had it, right?
I did not. I only heard through you.
Not?
I had the AMC one. I never had the actual Movie Pass.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I had it. I don't know how early on. Like at some point when they had dropped their prices to the ridiculously low price, I had it, and I saw so many movies because I mean it was like $10 a month.
Yeah,
and it worked well for a while.
So you're to blame, pretty much.
Yeah, and it was insane, like how just it took over everything, and a lot of people had it, and there was just this thought while using it, like, when is the other shoe going to drop? Like, they got to be hemorrhaging money, and this documentary really goes into detail a lot of stuff I didn't know. As far as like the owners of the the original owners, and they got pushed out, and then kind of this stuff, some illegal stuff, and then it was really interesting documentary about that whole thing, about the whole phenomenon around it. And definitely recommend it, especially if you had Movie Pass. And if you still have your Movie Pass debit card, apparently that's worth something. So you might want to go check it out. But Cynic, you saw it. What were your thoughts on it?
I thought it was fantastic, and it actually because at the end. He kind of gets the business back and revives it. I almost wanted to join just to support him.
Yeah, me too. Exactly. Yeah.
I felt bad about that. I mean, it just infuriated me because it's everything that's wrong with corporate greed in this country, where they just saw it as a pinky bank and they just kind of used it for their own means and bankrupt the company, put people out of business, and deprive people of a service that really could have worked if it was done correctly.
Exactly.
And I don't like the creator being forced out because he had the good sense to say, "Hey, we're going to run out of money if we keep doing this."
Exactly, like the one sensible person, and you're like forcing him out. Just that none of it doesn't make sense, but it's definitely worth watching. And it's a great point that you make too. So Cynic, are you watching anything else?
Yes, I'm knee deep, and I meant to suggest it to you guys into Clipped with Ed O'Neill, which is the story about Donald Sterling while he owned the Clippers, and while his unabashed racism started leaking out all over TMZ. And it's the first 2 episodes are out. It's available on Hulu. It's a great watch. My only nitpick was they didn't do a great job making or casting basketball players that actually look like the players. Like, Chris Paul is a pretty nondescript guy, and they couldn't get a guy that looked remotely like Chris Paul. And that bothered me a little bit because Winning Time on HBO, they did a phenomenal job casting those basketball players. Like, Magic Johnson looked like Magic Johnson. So it didn't take you out of the story. But yeah, Clip looked like I think there's only 6 or 7 episodes, and it looks like it's definitely going to be a winner.
Cool. Justin,
I was looking forward to seeing that as well. I listened to the 30 for 30 on that, and it was like really interesting, and it goes way back, right? So it's not like, oh, this just happened. This wasn't just a few years ago when he took over the Clippers. Like, it had gone way back. Like, so it's I'm looking forward to watching that as well.
Yeah. Have you been watching anything?
Nothing else for me right now.
Yeah. And there's a couple other things I've watched. There's a show, speaking of podcasters, called The Budokan, which stars Will Forte. It's on Netflix, and he's basically a true crime podcaster who travels to Ireland.
I've heard of that.
It's entertaining. It's a little like, I think a lot of shows now, it's like maybe a little longer than it needed to be.
Yeah.
But it's pretty funny. Good performances, definitely recommend. And I started watching the Benedict Cumberbatch that movie or show on Netflix, Eric, which is like takes place in the 80s. He's like a puppeteer on a like Sesame Street like show, and his kid goes missing, and only I think 2 or 3 episodes into it, but it's pretty good. A little too much, like okay, like he's a drunk and we get it, and it's thrown in our face constantly. That gets a little bit annoying, but besides that, it's so far pretty entertaining. I'll finish it, after a couple episodes. And I'm almost finished with Manhunt. I have 1 episode left.
Yeah, that's really good.
It's really good,
The ending definitely pays off.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, definitely gonna watch or finish that hopefully this weekend. Have either of you guys seen Godzilla -1?
I haven't.
So everyone says it's like the best Godzilla movie ever. So it's on Netflix. I'm gonna try to watch it this weekend, and maybe next week I'll share my thoughts on it, because everyone's saying like it's the best Godzilla movie. I think it was nominated for an Oscar. So excited about that. All right, so let's get to
Moment we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, our main discussion. I'm going to be interested. So the Acolyte, the newest Star Wars series, debuted this week, and we all had a chance to watch it. Okay, so let's do this, because we're going to talk lots and lots of spoilers. So I want you to give me your quick, spoiler-free, like, did you like it or not, and then we'll go into depth. So Cynics, spoiler-free, quick, quick overview of what you thought of the show.
I thought it was shot very well. It almost looks like Ubisoft made a TV show. Like, it looks very video game-ish in its combat and the way that the Jedis are portrayed. Visually, I thought it was a good show. I just have some serious problems with other things.
Okay. How about you, Justin?
It's funny. I was thinking the exact same thing. Like video, like it has that. It looks a little bit like a beautiful video game. It's obviously shot well, but overall, I didn't love it, and I'm sure we'll get into why. We'll probably have some similar ideas.
Yeah, like I said, I think I said earlier, I'm probably a little higher than you guys. It's definitely underwhelming, but there's still. I'm not completely down on it yet. So I'll give it the next couple episodes and see where it goes before saying like, okay, this sucks or whatever. I feel like Andor, which ended up being, a phenomenal show, started slow. So I'll give this a benefit of the doubt. But now we're gonna get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet and you care about spoilers, maybe pause, wait, come back, because we're gonna talk. Not gonna go super into depth, but definitely gonna cover some things that happened in this show. It'd be hard to talk about this thing without some spoilers. So basically, the show's so it's based on the High Republic series, which it started off as books and novels and comics. It takes place about 100 years before the fall of the Empire, and it's kind of considered like the golden era of the Jedi. And so where we start with this show is basically there's an assassin that's targeting Jedi and murdering them. And then we get kind of an investigation, and then just it opens into several mysteries that we get. So the first, as any first episode, kind of quick, hard to follow and hard to judge, but we'll try to get into that. So the very beginning of the show starts off with Carrie-Anne Moss's Indara, who's attacked by an opponent who's not wielding a lightsaber, which actually made for like an interesting fight scene for Star Wars, because you have a Jedi kind of doing a martial arts type fight against somebody else, which we don't see much of. So, and then also with Carrie-Anne Moss of Matrix fame, it was just kind of interesting to watch. So shockingly, she's killed right away, which I don't think anybody had expected, because she's a big name actor who's in this big property. So I guess two-part question here. So first off, Cynic, I'll ask you, what did you think of the kind of martial arts and the choreography and how it differs from what we're used to? And then what are your thoughts on them killing off who we probably all thought was going to be one of the main characters in the show?
Yeah, absolutely love it. I don't know if that was a Game of Thrones thing they tried to do there, but I thought it was a huge mistake. I thought she, as an actress, works as a Jedi. Like, one of the, out of all of them on the show, she's the most believable in the role. And I know of at least 2 or 3 people that were going to watch it specifically for her. So I had to go to work and tell them, like, if you're going to watch it just for her, then don't bother. Because it's grand opening, grand close. Yeah. So that was super disappointing. That was I think a bad decision. You don't throw a face like that out there and then do away with her in the opening act.
Yeah. How about you, Justin? Like, I guess thoughts on the choreography, the fight, and then thoughts on them just kind of offing her right away.
Offing her right away, it's like that didn't bother me too much. I think that the fight choreography, the first one, which is supposed to be a barn burner, was boring. Like, it wasn't a great fight. It was clearly a younger woman who was athletic, could pull stuff off. And what's her? I'm sorry, the name of the older actress,
Carrie-Anne Moss, or
she's
Indara?
not she's she's older. She's not super athletic in this, at least. And it was like it was sort of like it's Matrix-esque. But it was a boring fight. It wasn't an exhilarating fight between 2 athletic actresses. It was just sort of one who was clearly had a little something going on. The other one was doing sort of
But
had that sort of like I'm a master, like I can do these things. Look, it doesn't have to be realistic, but it was boring. It just there wasn't it was boring and it was weird. And now remember, I'm watching it from an outsider perspective. I am not in the Star Wars world where I consume everything. To me, it was a boring fight. It just wasn't great, and I had an issue with the ending of it. It was a neat little thing that May did, where she like threw the star at one to distract her. But and this is actually a big problem that I have with the show in general, and we'll get to it. But so this Jedi Master falls for this trick, just like that. Like she has the power to stop a ninja star being thrown, but then it falls for a trick, someone who's a master. It's like, really, and more of this will come out as we get deeper into the show. But I didn't love the first fight. I thought it was boring, and the end and the ending of it was just
the edit. The amount of times you've said that it's boring.
It was boring.
He was like 10 times.
I'm boring you with saying how much.
We're gonna have a ding for every time you say boring.
Ding.
The rest of the show.
Well, yeah, her fighting style was very much Jedi. That being reserved and controlled. And what made it exciting was that we had never seen someone use martial arts to fight someone that was a bona fide Force user. So yeah, she was controlled and measured.
I like that.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, no. So I think you both bring up good points. I think you're like Cynic. You're completely right. I think that I liked that's how a Jedi would fight without weapons, right? She doesn't need to be athletic. She doesn't need to be super quick with her moves. But Justin brings up a good point. As somebody who's not steeped in Star Wars and doesn't kind of understand that, it can be a bit off-putting. Mm-hmm. But I think that story. So the interesting thing is that fight tells a very interesting story, right? Because you have this stoic Jedi. They make it clear like they're not going to kill, right? So she's not going to fight to the death unless her life is threatened. Mm-hmm. So she takes her, she doesn't take it seriously, and the whole story of this fight is her not taking it seriously, then finally saying, all right, calm down, because I can kill you if I want to. And then the person who's clearly undermatched, being able to trick her and win just by that trickery. I didn't mind it because of the kind of storytelling in the fight. I think the thing also with them killing off such a big name actor, it's shock value, but it's kind of shock value for the sake of being shocking, like it'd be different. So, and this will be an issue I'll talk about more of my critiques of the show is, we cared about her dying because she was a big name actress, right? If you're a fan of The Matrix, like, oh wow, she's awesome. I can't wait to see her as a Jedi. Yeah. And then she gets killed, right? So for us, our caring was the Carrie-Anne Moss, not this character Indara. So killing her off right away is cheap. It wasn't really earned. You could have taken any actor, you could have taken me and been that Jedi Master and killed me off, and it has that same effect without pissing people off. It would have been better for us to believe, really buy into her and care about her as a character, then kill her off. Yeah. But by not, that's what makes, all the great deaths in Game of Thrones work, is because we cared about those characters. Yeah. And we cared so much that when they were, that it was a gut punch. And this was more just like shocking than anything else.
It's like you care about her because you've seen her in other things. But
exactly.
Like in this, she's not a developed character. So it's like, a little weird. It's
like a meta thought process. Like, oh my God, they killed off this big name actor. Not, oh my God, they killed off this character I care about. And that's the bad storytelling, right? Like the fight was, to me, the good storytelling. The result is fine, but it was cheap.
So you didn't have an issue with the Jedi Master being tricked so easily.
Yeah, I did.
That is a fair point. Like, I think she was tricked easily, and a clear trick, right? And then there's some other stuff that happens later on that same thing. So you're absolutely right. I think that is an issue. It's like, yes, it tells a good story, except that no reasonable person's gonna fall for that, right? Like look over there, like that. I mean, come on. It's like we've done that. We did that in elementary school. Like, what the hell, So no, that's a fair point. Like, I do think it was way too easy. And again, if you're really, if you're really trying to go meta and figure out, maybe it's just about, maybe it's a metaphor for the Jedi's hubris, maybe, You know, that's
I thought
what
that
it
might have been
stands
taken
for.
lightly.
Maybe, but it's still like you could have found a better way to do that.
Yeah.
Well, there was a wrestling manager in the 80s named Mr. Fuji. And no matter who Mr. Fuji brought to the ring, somebody was getting some salt in their eyes. And it happened 1,000 times, and the good guy would always fall for it. And that was still less than this. Like, it was less obvious that this was so on the nose that it was hard for me to look past. Like, the Jedi knows that she's going to do this, and she just stood there and let it happen.
Yeah, just stood there and took it. So yeah, it's kind of a little silly. All right, so basically, in the very next scene, we get the would-be killer, who's Amanda Steinberg's Osha. She wakes up, she's on a ship, and her demeanor is completely different. And I remember remarking to my wife right away, like, "Oh wow, like her attitude's completely different." And so there's a noticeable change. She's quickly apprehended by the Jedi, and then it's immediately evident that there must be some kind of a doppelganger,
Yes.
there. So now I'll ask you, Justin, was that just too obvious, like right away?
Yeah, I mean, clearly we knew that something was up. I already think, oh, does she have a twin, or is someone impersonating her?
Yeah.
There was also another thing where, and I guess it was to show the powers of the crew that apprehended her, where the people on the ship said, "Oh no, she's not here," and he was like, "Tell me the truth."
Yeah.
It's like, but what was the motivations? Like, why would this people lie? Like,
well, no, I think they established that because, like, they're whatever they're called, like they're not supposed to be doing that work.
Be there. Okay,
I think that's it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So yeah, it was clear. My issue, however, was with the next scene, and we'll get to that.
Yeah. So, is that the prison break scene, or
yes?
Okay, cool. Okay, we'll get to that. Okay. So, Cynic, how about you? Was it too obvious and kind of cheap that they're going the whole twin route?
Well, unfortunately, I got wrapped up in the hullabaloo of the show before it came out, and I found out about a week and a half ago that Disney had actually spoiled it in one of their trailers.
Okay.
I guess it was a subtitle that had a different name, even though it was that particular character speaking, or it's supposed to be that. So they kind of ruined it, but it would have took me all 30 seconds to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's one of my major critiques of the show is this whole doppelganger thing was just lazy. And it was lazy for not only the way it was presented, but it was lazy for the fact that these two. All right, so let's look at Amanda Steinberg, the actress. I've seen her in 10 or 15 interviews, and her hair is always vastly different. Okay, in every single interview, like her stylist must be making a ton, and somehow these two characters that haven't seen each other in 10, 15, 20 years have the exact same hairstyle. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Now, do you think for you, is it the fact that it's twins that's kind of cheap, or do you feel like they could have done a better job of it? Like, could they have strung us along longer, and been a better reveal, or you just think like they could have had done something better than just it being twins?
I just think of all the antagonists in the Star Wars universe, and to go with yet the Marvel thing where we have somebody that has the same exact look and powers that you have is just, it's lazy. It's been done. And I wish they would have done anything else, because I'm going to tell you, Ryan, I hate the backlash that Star Wars is getting. I hate it. And I went into this with an open mind wanting to like it. And there are a lot of things to like, but there's a lot of things to dislike about this property too.
So, okay. So before we get to the next scene, it's very much connected to the next scene, but we're not doing our standard review where we cover the 5 different topics, but there is a massive internal logic and consistency issue that happens here. Do either of you guys know what I'm talking about?
Once you say it, I'll probably be like, oh yeah.
The fact that here a woman that just murdered a Jedi was allowed to be on a ship by herself just with droids.
Okay, yeah, that goes into the next.
Yeah, like that's that was that of everything in the show was the dumbest thing. Like, why would you do that? it doesn't make sense. If she just murdered a Jedi Master, she is incredibly dangerous. Clearly is strong with the Force. Why would you leave her on a ship piloted by a droid with other criminals?
It's very simple, so that they can have a prison break, and then the prison break itself was ridiculous. It's like, we're busting out of here.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
Why were they waiting? It was so, and that's all right. So that's my thing.
Yeah. So tell me about
everything is too easy.
Yeah.
For the characters, everything happens. It's like, we want to do something, we do it. There's no struggle. It's like, we're busting out of here. You're with us. 2 seconds later, they busted out with no problems. Why were they waiting till then to bust out? Why didn't they just bust out before? Because they needed to wait for her to get on the ship so that they could bust out. It's more sort of very strange things that are illogical. And yet I was thinking the same thing. You have these hardened mega criminals, and yet it's so convenient that it's just manned by droids, and that they knew it. They're like, oh, this one's manned by droids. It's just so easy. It's like they didn't have to put any effort into breaking out. We're breaking out. And it's like, it's too easy. It reminds me, and Cynic, you mentioned this, it reminds me of a video game. Like the way that everything was introduced, and sort of the way that the story doesn't go into great details. Like, we're busting out next so that it can further the next part of the game.
Well, that's almost as mind-boggling as that we jump ahead a little bit to the force field Jedi, and what happens there, and she somehow runs away from everybody that she's trying to prove that she's innocent, and then starts monkeying around with the body, messing with evidence, and touching the body. And I'm like,
it's not what it looks like.
What in the living fuck are you doing? Like, they suspect you of killing people, and now you're in a room alone with a dead Jedi.
And not to say, and then speaking of convenience, the Jedi conveniently shows up. Oh no, she didn't do anything. I saw her.
How did she get that far ahead of everybody?
Yeah. So it's just ridiculous.
And about that scene too, along the lines of, it's too easy, right? And May, who comes in to do, she just got in there easily, was able to find her way to the Jedi. They knew that they were looking for her, and it's the same concept. She just so easily got there, got out, got the poison, came back without any interference. It's like, come on.
And it took her 30 seconds to convince that dude to kill himself. And is that that much of a loss?
Let's get to that. We get there. All right, let's go back.
Easy.
So I will say one thing I liked. Star Wars always does an amazing job with their droid design, and I love the cute little droid, the cute.
Oh, I hated that. Great. I'm fucking tired of the pocket droid. Either commit to having a droid or don't. They started it with Leia, and okay, she's a little girl. But if we're gonna have a droid, it's not gonna be a fucking Palm Pilot. I mean, come on, dude.
I like the droid. I can't. I feel
it's
like
lazy. It's a tool of convenience.
Yeah, it is. But I like the droid. Although maybe it's that I'm doing a D&D game, and my character has its own droid. So maybe I was like, oh, that's like my character, but no. Okay, anyway. Okay, so back to the show. So the other annoying thing is, okay, so they have the dumb escape. Somehow they manage to get out. The guy that's she rescues a guy that's like on drugs. He escapes and is somehow able to escape without her.
Where the pod was, just able to run right to it after being boggled by a parasite.
Right, yeah, exactly. So imagine just being high on the most cocaine you've ever, not even cocaine, like the most opium you've ever been on, and then you're somehow able to get up, sprint to a pod, and know how to press the buttons. That was kind of dumb. And then she crash lands and somehow survives. Like that was also, it's like, I mean, I know it's Star Wars, but come on, man. Like nobody would survive that. Like, why would you do that? Cynic, did that drive you crazy? Or at this point, were you just like,
I'm telling you, Ryan, it's in the writing. The writing was very lazy. It was very deliberate. It was very out of touch. Like, it was just like, hey, wouldn't this be cool? Let's just write it. Like, consistency is out the escape pod. We're just, we're going to throw everything to the wall and see what fits.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's like you guys kind of answered my next question, but it's basically, so after the crash landing, we do go back to we get a little bit more backstory on her. So we find out that Osha's family died in an accident. She was taken in by Master Saul, who trained her until at some point she left the Jedi Order. And Sol and Yord, the guy who stupidly left her on her own to go back, even though he was heading to the same place, they leave to apprehend her. They very quickly get to the planet, where she crashed. Very
yeah.
quickly find her on a planet.
A planet,
right?
yeah.
And an inhospitable planet with horrible weather, where it doesn't look like anything could live there. And they find her. She's they chase after her a little bit. They capture her. End of episode. I was going to ask you, was it just all too convenient? As if you haven't answered that question already, but yeah, it was a little bit too much. Like there's you got to write better. I feel like for something like this, like that it's just like it's not hard to do that. Like just give them a little bit more of an obstacle. Spend a little more time figuring out like.
As I often say this, where was the adult in the room that said that this script is childish? It sounds like almost like something we would write in junior high school. It was almost at that level of like just do like without any consistency, without any thought. Maybe it might be difficult to do this. Well, why? Let's just make everything convenient for the plot.
Yeah.
Right. No one just said, this is weak writing.
I don't know.
Well, I just got done watching Into the Panderverse, the South Park short film, and it was all about Kathleen Kennedy, and it's basically just make her a chick and make her gay, and very, very lame. And that's kind of what they've done here. This all feels like a vehicle to just push somebody's agenda along. And the
Acolyte.
I guess we don't need good writing as long as we have a host of every flavor character and they're gay and very lame.
I don't like it. It's not hard to make good. You can do both, right? Like
you can do both.
If you want the diversity, great.
We talk about it all the time. You say it all the time, Ryan. As long as it's a good story, which it's not. And so far, it's not. 2 episodes in, it is not.
Yeah. And give us some
then we can accept the rest. But if the story falls flat, then all we have left is what you're trying to accomplish. And what you're trying to accomplish is you've basically invaded a territory that was mostly male and, for the most part, heterosexual, and inserted seeds of, oh, well, we want to change this. And if you don't like the fact that we want to change this and it goes against everything that you care about or you want to watch, then you're wrong. And that's the one thing that I was trying to avoid in all this. I want to like the story. I want to like these characters. I don't want to get sucked into the agenda. But when you leave me with no story and nothing else to fall back on, that's the only thing I can sit there and think is like, wow, they're really just pushing all this on us.
I don't know. I don't necessarily see it quite like that. Like I think there are lines here and there maybe, but I think it's just not good storytelling. It's not like I don't feel that there's quite. I think what it is that things will get amplified if you're not telling a good story. It's easier to say, okay, what's going on?
At those types
what
of things.
Is the agenda? Like, are they trying to do this? Are they not? And then it becomes just like the story becomes something completely different instead of it being, this is like let's just write good stuff. So yeah, it's can be frustrating to say the least.
Well, and it goes sort of back to like with the story, and that it's like, I don't care who the characters are or their gender or their sexual orientation or their race. I care if I care about them.
Yeah.
And getting through the first episode and through the second, I didn't care about anyone. Yeah. I didn't have any attachment to any of the characters based on the story.
Well, it's funny because you haven't watched The Mandalorian, but somehow they were able to make us care in a couple episodes about a baby puppet that doesn't speak and hasn't said a word. You get us to care about a human being, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, but how is it like 3 out of 4 properties we get is all the same thing? And it's the same. We're going to push this narrative. We're going to push the female lead. We're going, whether you like it or not, and the stories never line up. Like they're never good, and then we get stuck with what's left. And it's like, I get it. Disney paid $4 billion for Star Wars. So if they want to build a mansion and then put, used furniture out in front and, maybe park a couple broken down cars in front of it, that's their right. But they can't. I mean, they can't be surprised with the reaction that the fan base has had.
I would only say though the problem with the fan base is the fan base reacted before seeing it. It'd be different if
Are
they
they wrong,
reacted
though?
like, yeah, but they reacted as like, oh crap, another female lead, rather than like, oh, this is a boring story.
Right, for the wrong reasons,
Right?
as you would say.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. But they've also put out plenty of bad stuff with traditional leads too. So just kind of like a get your stuff right, figure out your stories, get your stuff together.
Another thing that bothered me too was that they went out and they looked for people that were completely unfamiliar with Star Wars to lead the show. The actors, like one of them even said Anakin blew up the Death Star, which I don't care. That's a slip of the tongue. He may not even meant that, but it's like, well, if we're going to subvert everything that the fandom wants, we don't want the actors to kind of push back on the script and go, yeah, but as a Jedi, would I do this? Or as a Jedi, would I say that? And that just bothered me a little bit because it just feels like a further push in that direction.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so let's get back to the episode. So the episode 1 ends basically with the reveal, the obvious reveal that the villain is actually Osha's sister May, and she seems to be acting on orders of a mysterious figure. It was to me that episode is kind of underwhelming, and I think you're to say the least. And what we'll do is we're just going to review episodes 1 and 2. So after we're done with episode 2, we'll get our final thoughts on those first 2 episodes. So basically, episode 2 starts with May going after a Master Torben, who's played by, I forget the actor's name, but he played Tommen Baratheon, wearing the funniest fake beard I've ever seen in my life. I mean, that had to be a fake beard, right? There's no way that was real. And it looked terrible. And so he has this kind of Jedi force field, independent of the logic behind it. Did you guys think that the Jedi force field kind of was a cool effect?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, if you were in deep meditation, we kind of looked at that a little bit when Grogu was meditating up on the hill before Boba Fett made the big save. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I thought that was kind of cool, but the presentation of the Jedi was completely wrong. It looked ridiculous. The prosthetic eye, the scar, none of it looked real, and the beard was appalling. It just, I don't know who did the costume design for that, but it was not good.
It looked pretty bad. No, so you guys already kind of railed on the logic of her jumping in there and everything, so we don't need to go to get into it. But did it bother you guys? And maybe I missed something, but basically she shows up, she tries to do some kung fu to get into the force field, doesn't work. She leaves, she gets some poison, she comes back. Somehow she's able to wake him out of his meditative state
by saying a couple things,
and he drinks the poison. So my question is, why didn't she was there any logic behind why he came out of that then and didn't?
Well, the guy who supplied her with the poison was very weakly was like, oh, you have to use their weaknesses. So I guess she just knew the right things to say and play off of whatever was disturbing him. I guess based on his background story, he had committed whatever he did that bothered him. He had been carrying it around, which is why she was able to magically, that no one else has ever done, just say the exact right words to pull him out and then get him to kill himself, basically.
So why would he do that? Like, he's a Jedi master. Like, why would he kill himself?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that drove me crazy about the scene as well is her picking up the poison and going, oh, I know what this is. We use poison in hunting. You don't use poison in hunting because it would corrupt whatever you're trying to kill. So no, that you don't use poison in hunting. I've never seen a situation in all my years where a hunter uses poison for any reason. And I'm not just talking in real life. I'm talking about in any show, like maybe some sort of sleep toxin or something like that, or a slow, but not anything that would kill anybody. So that was flawed as well. You would think that a Jedi, no matter what he did, would, number one, either leave the order, or number two, come to peace of what he did, not hold all this internal hate inside that 10 simple words and he's willing to hit the Jim Jones opt-out button.
And the next thing that really annoyed me about that second episode, you have the guy supplying the poison. They were like, oh, well, if you just tell us, we'll let you go.
Yeah, that was kind of funny.
It's like there was no thought that this guy, well, maybe he's in on it a little bit more. He's supplying poison to kill Jedis. Like,
Yeah,
what
like
is, just let him go and then the escape was so easy.
Yeah,
It's just
well,
like,
we'll get to that in a second. We'll get to that in a second.
on.
So yeah, so basically, so OSHA, Saul and crew arrive just too late, but they eventually capture May in a sting operation, and then she narrowly escapes. So and then you have that scene where she's got the gun pointing at her, she could stop her, and then she seemingly intentionally misses. So I guess Cynic, did she intentionally miss, and was it annoying to see a scene that we've probably seen a million times?
Let's jump back to the escape first.
Yeah.
Okay, they have her surrounded. They're talking her down, and she uses dirt to get away.
Yeah.
And okay, the people on the ground, maybe the dirt gets in your eyes and you can't see. But the one person that would be able to keep her on their screen is the person in the ship above her. And she's like, oh no, she's going off scanners. No, you're the one person that would be able to see her through the dirt because, they're advanced enough that they can travel through time.
But not
see past some dust.
That is my biggest nitpick with the Star Wars universe is they can travel through galaxies, but they don't have heat-seeking scanners, right? They don't have everything is visual. They don't have scanners that can pick people up in with other methods.
But you shoot a big you see this person, shoot a big net. Just capture them. It's not, you don't even need super advanced technology. Just do anything.
Or during the fight, they're able. Saul is clearly able to. He's extremely powerful. He's clearly able to hold someone in place. Why doesn't he just hold her in place? So it's it gets a little.
Well, she used dirt. She was like Mr. Fuji. It got in her eyes. It was very irritating. It got everywhere, like sand. It's Star Wars. Why does it makes sense unless you think about it.
Yeah, it does. All right, so we're not doing our normal reviews, but I do have I kind of was thinking about when you're talking about the first couple episodes of a series, especially something that's brand new, there are certain you have to give it a little bit of benefit of the doubt, and then I came up with kind of all right, what are the things you need to do in a first episode to make it work? And so we can briefly go over these 4 things before we give our final review. Basically, I'll tell you the 4 things and we'll go through each one. So to me, and maybe I'm missing something, but I think, a new show needs to establish the world you're in. What's, whether it's world building or what are things like, what are the physics like, what's the world like? We're somewhat familiar because it's Star Wars, but obviously this is a different era. So you have that. It has to establish somewhat of an interesting story and also what the stakes are. So what are the stakes and why should we care? There should be intrigue, so we should be interested in what's happening next. And then finally, we should care about characters and what happens to them. So one by one, let's start with the world. Were you guys okay with the world building so far? Do you feel like you understand what this is about and how things work in this kind of version of Star Wars?
Yeah, absolutely. I was, the way it was presented was very Star Wars. That was one of the things that they did right. And it made a lot of sense. I have no problem or no issue with that.
Yeah. How about you, Justin?
The world is fine.
Yeah. All right. So then we'll get to, does it establish an interesting story? A, and B, does it establish stakes? Cynic, what are your thoughts?
Not as it's being presented to us. Yeah. No, it really doesn't. Like you said, they probably could have held the reveal a little longer, threw her in some sort of Darth Vader mask or a more Snake Eyes type get up where we don't know that, we're looking at mirror images of the pro and antagonist. That they could have done a little bit better job with that. Maybe more of a slow burn, even though I think we're only going to get 8 episodes of this particular show.
Yeah. How about you, Justin? Thoughts on the story and stakes?
So I don't get the motivation, and that's the stakes. That's everything, right? So and maybe we'll find out there's some turns and there's this, but I'm from someone who doesn't know that, I'm not invested enough to care about this story as to why this person wants to kill these Jedis. We know they want to, but it's just. The pull for it just isn't that strong for me personally.
Well, yeah. So I think, and part of that, I think that that's part of the intrigue, right? But I think they're not balancing that enough. So it's kind of so far we've got kind of all intrigue and what's going on, not quite enough story. And I tend to agree. I think the story is just not particularly strong. And it's kind of just
not very deep.
It's not deep. And it feels lazy. It's we've seen this kind of a story before, and and yes, okay, she's angry. Why is she angry with you? What happened? And again, that's part of the intrigue of it, but I don't think it hooks you enough with its own story. And then same thing with the stakes. It's like I don't really know what the stakes are right now, and why these characters want what they want. So it's kind of hard to. And then which takes to the next thing, like do you, well, okay, well well, so I'm going to flip them. Are any of these characters interesting so far for you, and do you care about any of them?
Master Soul was good. Nord was good. I mean, a few of the other characters, even though I hated the way the particular character looked, like I'm all for a Wookiee Jedi because I'm a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
So, but I hated the shaved head top knot thing. I thought it was stupid. But it doesn't mean that the character can't be interesting moving forward. So yeah, they're even May and what is it, Asha? Yeah. I mean, they seemed interesting enough to continue to watch the show if the story falls in line.
Yeah. How about you, Justin?
Yeah, the characters are fine, right? But once again, it's like you could eat beautiful. You could give the nicest silverware and eat terrible food, and it doesn't matter. So like, the characters look good. They could be fine, but when you put them in a story like that, then you're just not very interesting. So they could be compelling characters. I see nothing wrong with them, but as of now, very meh.
They're very good performances. Like everybody's
great
good.
actors.
The down the line, everyone's good. They're performing their characters well. There's nobody that I'm like, oh, that's kind of dumb, But I think the issue more for me is just that there's no depth to the character.
That's it.
I don't feel like they all feel one note. Everything's on the page. It feels like there's nothing, even for the main character who, there's supposed to be some kind of internal conflict. I just don't quite feel that. Quite as much. And so I think that's part of the issue right now is the characters seem to all be written very one-dimensional, very, one note, and there's just not that complexity that and maybe we get that, but I think that's part of the issue is I don't care about them all that much because they just haven't, they haven't gotten me to buy into any of this.
But the character depth is that they're non-binary and gay, and this is the gayest form of Star. This is the gayest Star Wars. I believe. What was her name? Leslie Headland said.
Hey,
and oh, by the way, R2D2 is a lesbian, even though he's a robot with absolutely no sexual organs. Or,
I mean, I get it. I'm told you can make the gayest Star Wars. Just give me good stories.
That's it. I mean. That's what bothers me about the whole thing is that you had an opportunity, but you chose to focus on this.
But I don't think. Was it? Do you feel like there was a focus on it? There was. Besides mentioning her mother's, do you feel like there was really a focus on anything beyond what we normally get?
Well, I felt like a lot of the characters were intentionally over the top non-binary or over the top potentially gay, which don't care. Don't make it about that. I don't want to watch queer Star Wars. I want to watch Star Wars. And if you give me good characters and a deep story, I don't care who they're sleeping with. That's never been a problem or an issue with me. I'm all for inclusion as long as it's done organically. And this doesn't feel organic for me. When you have the creator of the show telling people to sit down and shut up, this is what I'm doing with this thing. I mean, people have the right not to watch, and maybe they shouldn't. Rather than get mad and spout off on the internet, just don't take part. And when the ratings are low enough, just like what happened with the Suicide Squad kills the Justice League, when things go to shit, then the studio closes down and, now they have to take it in a different direction. And I think that's really what we need a fresh set of eyes over there. I've heard 1,000 times that Kathleen Kennedy's no longer in charge, but she's in charge and she continues to give us this. And I mean, if that's what Star Wars wants to give us, then it's fine. But I don't know how much longer I can ride on this ride if this is all that they're going to give us.
I mean, she gave us The Mandalorian and Andor. So.
No, she didn't give us The Mandalorian. Filoni and Favreau gave us The Mandalorian. And Favreau gave us
Mandalorian. She greenlit The Mandalorian. And she gave us Andor. So, but no,
I don't think it's I don't think it's as woke as Cynic is making it, but I think it's meta woke. Once again, when the story isn't there, when it's not good, your mind starts going to, they're making it like this because it just, it has to fit this sort of inclusion narrative right, that's going on, you wouldn't be thinking about it at all if you were enjoying it. So that's why I say it's it's meta woke.
Well,
No,
the
that's fair.
problem is that they make it a point to say it in every single interview.
That's
If you
Yeah.
watch an
Okay,
interview
that's
with
fair.
any of the stars or the showrunner / writer director, they make it a point to, this is what it is. Like those
Okay.
quotes that I just said came from her mouth. The head
No,
writer,
I read that earlier
showrunner.
today, and I was like,
And it's just like, come on,
that's
dude.
gonna-
Yeah.
Like you're. The problem is that if, like, I see, I couldn't find an equivalent female property to do it to. But if they invaded, My Little Pony or like, anything that was heavily, portrayed female growing up, and they just jammed all these straight male characters into it, chicks would be like, what the fuck? Why are they doing this? And I think that's overall what the fandom feels like. And I don't want to feel this way. Like, I want to just watch a great Star Wars show. Andor was great because they focused on other things.
I think there's a two-part issue, right? Because for me, like, I'm hyper aware of the fandom and the toxic part of the fandom. So, right,
it's
you have
terrible.
You have this very toxic part that is ready to jump on anything, and so the problem is, when you press, when you express yourself in the press like that, it's like adding fuel to that fire, and then it changes the narrative. So, like, independent of what they chose to put on the show, by going out and being so aggressive, it's just going to make the narrative about that. And like you said, we don't want it to be about that. We don't want it to be about whatever agenda people think, because it's just like, just tell good stories. And the thing is, like, if you can kind of not be aggressive, if you're not as aggressive, you just do it, and people like it or they don't, and they'll go away. But then by adding the fuel to the fire, it makes it then changes the story to be about that. And then if your story is not good, which this one so far is not that great, we're spending half the episode talking about that and not talking about, this brand new Star Wars property that we're loving and want to see where these characters go. So I hope they.
Yeah, we have 6 more episodes to correct the ship.
Yeah.
And I hope at the end I'm throwing 8s or 9s or 10s around.
Yeah.
Like, I want to like this. I want to like everything Star Wars, because I don't want to be in that toxic Star Wars fan base ship.
Yeah.
I would want to be as far away from that as possible, because I feel like deep down Star Wars has passed those people by and they're no longer fans.
Pretty much.
They used to be fans, and they're just bitter because it's not what it used to be. And I don't need it to be what it used to be. Evolve. I love Nine Inch Nails, and they've evolved so much through every single album. And some of it I loved, some of it I didn't, but I didn't feel the need to get on the internet and angrily bash Trent Reznor because he put out an album I didn't like.
Yeah.
I just don't feel the need to do that. I also don't love the people that are supposed to be in charge of the adults in the room, as Justin would say, over there inciting the fan base, like, just deal with it. Shut up, sit down. Like, you're making it worse.
Yeah. Absolutely. So now, I guess the last part of these things is building intrigue. So, do you guys? Now, there is a lot of mystery involved. Do you think they did a good enough job of building intrigue for you to want to continue to see it, or have the negatives kind of outweighed that?
I mean, it's pretty for Justin not being super familiar with Star Wars. It maybe for somebody that's not, but it's pretty cut and paste that, hey, there's a Sith behind all this, and he's pushing the buttons and inciting this person to attack, the Jedi, and now probably her own sister. It's not. There's not much intrigue so far through 2 episodes.
So quick, before you respond, so as somebody who's a fan of, like, a fan of Star Wars, if that Sith is revealed to be Darth Plagueis or like Darth Revan or something, would that excite you?
Maybe
I
a little.
this is
maybe
just
a
me,
little.
pure speculation. I've not read anything or heard anything. I'm just saying, like,
but if it was somebody of note, like, if it
Darth...
ties it into other properties, maybe, possibly. I would leave an open mind, like I am for the final 6 episodes. I'm leaving an open mind. Like you said, Andor started out slow, not this slow. But Andor started out slow, and it redeemed itself and turned out to be one of my favorite Star Wars properties in years. Yeah. So yeah, possibly.
How about you, Justin? Is there enough intrigue to keep you going,
So,
or are you just
so I would call it manufactured intrigue. Okay. So look, it's all manufactured, obviously, but like starting with the twins, and then of course, who's behind pulling the strings, and everything is sort of convenient so that we know what's coming. right? I see it as manufactured intrigue where everything is convenient so that so that we're wondering what's going on instead of it sort of organically happening. Look, and I know that that everything is, so I'm using that term sort of loosely, but that's how I feel. It's like it's contrived intrigue.
It's like
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's not earned. Like I think when it comes to
Yes.
storytelling, as somebody who's like dabbled in it, or right, or like does some storytelling, right? You're obviously everything is your choice. I can choose to do anything I want with my story, but in order for it to work most of the time, those choices have to feel earned. And I think that's part of the issue with all of the storytelling so far, is that nothing seems earned. It's just like written for the sake of being written. And that gets frustrating because then it's like there's no connective tissue. And that's where, that kind of internal logic and consistency thing, for me, that's why it's such an important thing when I rate, because like that, if it's not there, there's nothing to hold on to. It's just floating pieces and you just, let's do this, let's do that. And then it makes for poor storytelling. So, all right, so I'll start with you, Justin. Give me your final thoughts, and let's say your rating for the episodes. I'm interested to hear what your ratings are because yours are always so low. So final thoughts and rating.
I was I wasn't expecting a ton, but I was disappointed. I was expecting at least a higher quality of show. Obviously, it looks great, right? Obviously, it's well crafted. Right, so you have great actors, and everything the sets look nice, and what the bits of CG, everything is well polished. But the story and the writing is just it seems amateurish to me. I gotta give it a 3 so far. It's like I wouldn't return if this wasn't for the podcast. If we weren't reviewing it, I would be like, I have no interest. I would not come back to this.
How about you, Cynic?
I'm somewhere about a 5. I think there are things to build on. I think there are solid characters if they just don't go ahead and just rip them out from under us, because why not? Fuck it. Some of the combat looked good. Anything with lightsabers, I love. Like, I loved seeing some of the other different color lightsabers from, I used to play Knights of the Old Republic online. So to see some of the different robes, excuse me, some of the different robes and lightsabers was kind of cool. I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, and all I want at the end of the day was a good story. So yeah, I'm about a 5, and hopefully it'll redeem itself in the second and third act.
Yeah, so I'm right there with you. I probably give it about a 6. Although you've probably, like, this discussion's probably talked me down to closer to like a 5.5. Yeah, I mean, the problem is, like, there is the shell of a very interesting and intriguing story there, even if you go with the whole twin angle. There are very good actors cast in this.
Yeah,
it looks very good outside of some small spots here, but it looks really good. The character design is good, as Star Wars always is. The alien design is really good. I like the action. I like it that it's different from what we're used to. And then you have this character, like, it's intriguing. Why is this person attacking Jedi? It's like you or I, running up to like a soldier with a machine gun and being like, all right, let's go. Like, that's crazy. Why would you do that? Why is it, what kind of person does that? And then she's killing them. So like it has these elements that make it intriguing and interesting. And I do want to know what's going on with the sisters. I think it's just like there just was not a complete story that we got. And then there's so many like nitpicky things that sticks out, and you're not focused on like the story and what is interesting about it. So it's like there was an edit that I don't think was, a couple edits that needed to be done on these scripts to really, tighten things up. Now, again, it's only 8 episodes. They could right the ship. Maybe we get a great reveal on who this villain is, and maybe things go places that we didn't expect. First episodes are always difficult. So and as a big Star Wars fan, I'm going to watch it. But I'm not as high as I was hoping. I was hoping that it was gonna be a really great thing and something brand new and different. I was hoping Justin would like it because he's not a big Star Wars guy. So it's like, hey, we can get it. This will be his entry. His entry into Star Wars will be the Acolyte, but maybe not.
Don't you hate when that happens? When like you want to introduce something to someone, and then like you choose the wrong thing, and you're like, oh, great, this is what represents.
I'm 0 for 2 with you the last couple of weeks. I tried with Ripley. I thought you'd like it. Nope. So we're gonna do. So speaking of next up, what's Cynic? Did you have something to say?
No. I was just I was thinking that I had just recently turned somebody on to Deadwood, and they just finished it and they absolutely loved it. So
Okay,
yeah, it's disappointing when somebody's like doesn't quite get why you're attracted to a particular show or like I took one of the deeper thinkers in my workplace and turned him on to Baby Reindeer.
Okay.
And it wasn't until we had the conversation afterwards. He's like, "Why the fuck did you make me watch that?" And then I started bringing up, like the moral points of it. And he's like, then we engaged in a discussion. He's like, "Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I made it out to be or initially thought. It was,
Weird.
it's a lot more deeper and complex than maybe I gave it credit for."
Well, it's like that's how I feel with The Expanse. Like I'm a massive fan of that show, and I think I've gotten everybody to try to watch it, and I think and almost universally, it's like it was good, but I just didn't feel like continuing.
It was it was hard, it was like one of those shows that I watched and I say I know this is good, right? It's just I can't I can't latch onto it. It's like you think of a similar show like say Battlestar Galactica that it was easier for me to dive into that world. The Expanse it was hard. I couldn't I tried. I gave it the college try. I gave it a chance.
The issue with it
was just
and
hard.
I witnessed it with Anna. Basically, like she stopped and started that show several times, and it's a slog for those first few episodes and the first season really. And then we went to Comic-Con one year and we got lucky and we got like a thing where we got to meet the cast, and because she met like everybody and they were all the whole cast are so sweet and like it was really nice. Like it was kind of cool just meeting all them, and they're all really sweet. And I would go up to each person. I'd be like, "Hey, convince my wife to watch the show," and they were like, "You're not watching the show," and so we had this really cool experience. So that got her to watch it again. And once we got to about the end of season 1, she was in. But it is a bit of a slog. So, but I've had that issue with people. It's like it's such a great show, but it takes a while to get into it.
Yeah, but is that at the end of the day your wife's fault that it took a season for the show to get going, or is it the writer's fault?
You know what it is? It was a period in time. So I think when The Expanse started, right, there was a period of time where streaming wasn't as big as it is now. It was on Sci-Fi when it first came out. So you're still doing shows week to week. There's not as much content out. So then you can kind of live with that, right? Because it's like, okay, it's really well done. It was Battlestar Galactica had just ended, so it kind of like it fed that little bit of people that really loved that show and wanted something like it. It was hard sci-fi. It's very smart. So it's easier to kind of latch onto that and watch it week to week and get into it. Where in our day now, we're so used to like, hey, if I got an 8-episode show, I'm going to watch an episode. And if it sucks, I'm going to something else. I'm not wasting my whole weekend watching it. Where, so I think it kind of was like on the tail end of that version of TV. I don't know that like it would be done the same way if you're doing season 1 of that show. I think it has to be a little bit different. But yeah, so anyway, so just a quick, so next week we're going to do our preview of House of the Dragon. So Cynic and I have seen it and are both in the midst of a rewatch. Justin, you're going to start watching it because we're going to do that in advance of season 2 coming out. And again, we've been talking about it for a while. We got that coming out, and then we got The Boys. So we got a lot of stuff to cover over the next few weeks. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Maybe The Acolyte if it doesn't suck. But anyway, that's it. All of our stuff, as usual, is at portableholepublishing.com. And Justin, until next time.
Watch out for the hole. What hole?